Good evening and welcome. It's my pleasure to welcome you all this evening. This is our 18th Service and Leadership Recognition Evening. And this is really a uniquely Conestoga event. It's a very special evening which we celebrate kids and things that they do behind the scenes that might otherwise go unnoticed, but deserve recognition because it involves service and it involves leadership in ways that really embodies what Conestoga is about. As a principal, it makes me proud to say that we have so many of these students to recognize, and each year the number grows. It seems as though the program gets a little bit longer each year, and again, that really just exemplifies the kind of students that we have here at Conestoga. So I would like to first of all congratulate the students and say we so much appreciate what you do and for what you do to go above and beyond just your academic studies and your extracurricular, to serve the community and to do things that in many other schools just don't happen. So thank you to our students because this night wouldn't be possible without all of you, so thank you very much. You probably had a chance to look at the program briefly as you came in, and you see the kinds of things that our students are nominated for. Things like poverty relief, leadership on the athletic field, leadership in theater arts, TV production, choral instrumental music, academic diligence. These are just a few of the ways we recognize students tonight and every day really at Conestoga. So again, congratulate the students for all that they've done. To the students, I just want to say this evening, as you are part of the ceremony and as you receive your recognition on stage, remember the sense of accomplishment and joy that you felt when you were able to give back to others. And I would encourage you to continue to do that throughout your life, because those are the things that truly define your character and your integrity and make you special. And I hope that you're able to carry that from Conestoga. If you're staying at Conestoga for a few more years, you can continue to do it here. But those of you that are graduating, continue to do it as you leave Conestoga's doors, because it's what makes us so special. I'd like to thank a few people who made this evening possible. First of all, I hope you enjoyed the jazz ensemble and the reception that the 9th grade parents hosted. I'd like to thank both of them as you arrived this evening. I'd like to thank Jeannie Braun and Tracy Prestopino, who chaired this evening's events. Thank you to Jeannie and Tracy. And to Tori Hall, Michelle Staves, Kathy Lucas, and Misty Whalen, who you'll see on stage momentarily, who'll be hosting this evening's events. Thank you so much. And finally, I think it's Mike Starner and Noah Austin up in the booth for lights and sound, so I thank you both for your efforts this evening as well. As you saw from the program, our tradition each year for this recognition is that we invite a speaker who truly exemplifies the spirit of service and leadership to share their story with us. Tonight we're really fortunate to have a local hero with us who will share their story, and we use that as sort of the launch point for the rest of the evening. So we will first have a brief speaker and presentation, and then we will move into the awards part of the ceremony. And so at this time, I'd like to turn the program over to Michelle Stage. She is our Director of Student Activities, and she'll host the evening for us. Thank you all. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Meisinger. It's my third year and third honored evening to host our Service and Leadership Night. So again, congratulations to everyone. And at this time, I'd like to introduce two very special people we have here to represent the essence of service and leadership. Our first speaker is Mr. John Bonaventuro. He's the founder and president of the Chester County Hero Fund and a 25-year resident of Tredyffrin Township. Through Mr. Bonaventuro's leadership and dedication to service, many families have benefited from financial assistance when a police officer, deputy sheriff, firefighter, emergency medical technician, paramedic, or state trooper loses a life or is seriously injured in the line of duty. His work with the Hero Fund connected him to Conestoga High School over a year ago when Conestoga held a faculty-student basketball fundraiser to support the recovery efforts of Class of 2000 graduate U.S. Navy Corpsman Jay Raffetto. Jay was seriously injured in an IED explosion in Afghanistan serving our country. Our other presenter tonight is Jay's father, John Raffetto. Jay's mother, Jennifer, joins us tonight in the audience as well. They have a deep connection to Conestoga as parents of a graduate and longtime members of the school community. Mr. Raffetto is here tonight to share a valuable link between service and leadership that he and his family experienced through their work with the Chester County Hero Fund. After their son Jay was injured in service to our country, they forged that bond. Both Mr. Raffetto and Mr. DiBuonaventuro are giving of their time from their very busy schedules to be with us tonight. We are honored to have these presenters here to share their inspiring stories of service and leadership within our very own community. Please join me in welcoming Mr. John DiBuonaventuro and Mr. John Raffetto.
Good evening. Thank you, Michelle, for the kind introduction, and to Dr. Messinger, the staff here at Conestoga, and the student body for your invitation tonight. It's a pleasure to be with you on Conestoga Service and Leadership Night here. Let me begin by doing what I think is most appropriate, and that's recognizing the recipients who have made their community a little better through their volunteer efforts and leadership. So congratulations to each of the recipients tonight for an honor well deserved. When asked to join you tonight and speak, I wanted to know a little bit more about the awards night. And once I did, I realized that this is a very big deal. And it's a big deal in a lot of ways that most people wouldn't realize. As I looked over the list of those receiving awards, I also realized we also, meaning the Hero Fund and you, have a lot in common. That is, your efforts, like the Hero Fund, have had a positive effect on someone, somewhere in this community. And in the end, that really is what service and leadership is all about. So recognizing that, I thought I would briefly do three things tonight, and I do mean briefly. First, I wanted to give you some basics about the Hero Fund, so you understood a little bit about what our mission was. Second, and most important, I wanted to outline the story of the Hero Fund and Jay Raffetto, which really, when you get down to it, is a story between our community and a homegrown hero. And then third, some thoughts on why the Hero Fund, and in particular the Raffetto mission, has been so successful over the last 20 months. And by the way, what I'm going to share tonight, I think you'll find the reasons that I suggest to you of why we're able to achieve all this and obtain the level of success that we have are the same reasons that have driven many of you in your successes with your service and leadership activities. Tonight, as was mentioned earlier, I have the privilege of sharing this story and the podium with John Raffetto, Jay's dad, who you'll meet in just a few minutes. He's a man I refer to now as my brother. And together with his wife, Jen, we, along with many others in the community, work together to deal with what is the brutal reality of war and what the real price of freedom is, and that price was paid by Jay and his family. And in a lot of other ways, it was paid by this community, as that price came right home to the doorstep in Chester County. The Hero Fund. The Hero Fund was started in February of 2001. The mission was to do one thing and to do one thing well, and that mission was to offer any support we could to first responders who are injured or killed in the line of duty, and to make sure and certain that they or their families suffered no financial impact as a result of his or her service. But 6 months later, 9/11 occurred. And as you can imagine, it changed everything. It upped the ante for us in a huge way. The future changed that day for all first responders. It changed for the Hero Fund, and it changed for Conestoga grads like Jay and others. No one really knew what the degree of that change would be, or really what lied ahead. Since the Hero Fund began, probably a lot of you don't know that 3 of our first responders have died in the line of duty just in Chester County, along with many other injured, some very seriously. And over the county's history, 30 first responders have died in the line of duty. But in August of 2010, our mission changed and expanded. We now are called on to provide an unprecedented level of support for one of Chester County's own who had gone down hard in Afghanistan, and that was Conestoga graduate Jay Raffetto. As they said, he was severely injured, but to be detailed about it, he lost both legs above the knee. He lost one arm above the elbow, and almost all of his fingers on his remaining arm, which was severely damaged. And within days, another Conestoga graduate, Dr. Bob Preem, who a lot of you know, arranged a meeting between myself and John Raffetto, Jay's dad. You see, Doc Preem's my doctor, he's the Raffetto's doctor, and I bet he's probably the physician of a lot of other folks in this room. And within days, another meeting occurred, and that was with your own Kathy Lucas here from the Counseling Guidance Office, and Judy D. Serafino Yui, mom of Marine veteran Miles Bauer, another Conestoga graduate who has served this country honorably. The Heroes Fund mission with regard to Jay was now defined, it was clear, and clearly underway. And the reason I bring this up, and it's important for you to see all of these players, is how important the power of relationships and networks are, and how quickly they can make things happen for your cause. So wherever your team and your network and your contacts are, you need to know that that is what makes the wheel turn. So the Hero Fund now used its brand, its reputation, its nonprofit status, and its ability to execute a mission. The job was to coordinate and to facilitate all the community energy forming around Jay, and it was immense. We adapted to accommodate each source of support as they surfaced, and we built little teams around each one, and no opportunity was left unaddressed. And then earlier this year, Dr. Preem again stepped in and reached out to another Conestoga grad, Jess Staley, who now is a senior executive with J.P. Morgan Chase, to begin the process of securing a home for Jay in the D.C. metro area. So between Dr. Preem, Jess Staley, the Hero Fund, and other quiet supporters, a house for Jay has been secured. The funds have been raised to modify that house, and construction began a few weeks ago. Through all this activity the last few years, what was important for the Hero Fund to do is the same thing that's important for each of you to do in whatever service you decide to provide or leadership role you choose to undertake. And surprise, it's not rocket science, and there's no revelations here. If you want to make a real difference, at least from my point of view, I suggest you remember just a couple of simple rules. One, and most important, engage in the things that inspire you. If you do that, you'll love what you do and your energy will be contagious. But most importantly, it becomes very hard for people to say no to you. Define your mission. You got to know what you want to accomplish. You got to stick to it and you got to do it well. In other words, stay in your box. Don't get distracted. And then use your relationships to build a team. And never stop building and expanding on them. And I know this is hard, but you got to try not to burn bridges. Believe me, I'm no choir boy when it comes to that. But it is the right advice, because you never know when you're going to need those relationships down the road. And you got to know your capacity. You cannot be all things to all people. I think that's the mistake sometimes people do make. You have to choose your role, you got to stay focused, and you got to stay disciplined. And then lastly, as Jay's experience has clearly indicated to all of us, your life can change in an instant, for better or for worse. So don't waste one day or take opportunities for granted, because I guarantee you, they often don't come around a second time. So whether it's your club leadership, your mentoring, raising money, raising awareness for your particular cause, your student government, or your volunteer activity, I think all those suggestions apply in some form or another, some more than others depending on what you're doing. And don't worry about personal recognition. A wise man once told me while we both were watching an individual congratulate themselves over and over again by saying, "I did this and I did that." The man said, when you hear someone say that, don't believe them, because no one does anything worthwhile by themselves. So in the end, we kept the mission simple, we stayed grounded, we built teams around the enthusiasm, and we focused on the execution. And I got to tell you personally, this role has been an experience of both equal sorrow and joy. It's been life-changing. You can't help but change or be affected when you have to call the wife of a firefighter at 2 o'clock in the morning. The experience has formed a bond with the Raffetto family that I know will now last a lifetime. And I can honestly tell you, my life is much richer as a result of the experience, and especially for having the opportunity to share those experiences with so many in our community, and in particular over the last 18 months with the students and the staff at Conestoga High School and the Raffetto family. So let me conclude by saying thank you again for the invitation, and if you'll allow me 30 more seconds, I'd like to give you a visual of what it felt like going through the last 20 months. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Raffetto.
Thanks, JD. Special thanks to Michelle Staves and Kathy Lucas. Webster defines service as contribution to the welfare of others, and leadership as guiding someone or something along the way. Obviously, all of you distinguished guests here tonight get what Webster was saying, as do all the folks who nominated and chose you for this honor. Good evening and congratulations to all you honorees and your proud families. My name is John Raffetto, and here with me tonight is my wife Jennifer, our son Peter, and Emily's mom, Colleen. We're the proud parents of 2 Conestoga graduates, Peter, class of '97, and Jay, class of 2000. As I thought about your service and leadership, I was hoping to pass along some other examples, because they both are often so subtle. In 1987, our family was lucky enough to move to this area from Illinois. We were fortunate to have found a wonderful realtor who, after showing us 60 homes, had the leadership skills of showing us the value of moving to Devon and the TE School District. Little did we know just how important that move was to be. 23 years later, almost to the day, on August 5th, 2010, Emily, our daughter-in-law, called from Camp Pendleton, California, with the news that Jay, a highly trained Marine Corps combat corpsman, had stepped on an IED while on patrol in the Helmand province of Afghanistan. While Jay was still alive, he had lost both legs above the knee, his left arm above the elbow, and 3 fingers on his right hand. Mercifully, the surgeons in the field hospital in the Afghan desert were able to save his right arm, his thumb, and his index finger. Because of excellent and certainly renowned Marine Corps leadership and service mentality, Jay's body armor, helmet, and blast glasses were tightly in place, and as such, saved his vital organs, his head, spine, torso, and his life. Let me say that again, because this is important. Because of the excellent and certainly renowned Marine Corps leadership and service mentality, Jay's body armor, helmet, and blast glasses were tightly in place, and as such saved his vital organs, head, spine, torso, and safe to say, his life. What I find so important about this is that on that August day in Afghanistan, the temperature was around 125 degrees. And a Marine Corps Recon Corpsman on patrol carries almost 60 pounds of combat gear and medical equipment. Imagine just for a minute the temptation to take off your helmet or loosen your Kevlar body armor in all that heat and dirt on what can be very routine and boring patrols through the medieval villages of Afghanistan. It only takes a second to step on an IED. It's the subtle bursts of leadership that matter. I stand before you tonight to talk about the service and leadership of this school district and the Chester County Hero Fund. To talk about people like Dr. Bob Preem of Devitt Family Practice, who, upon learning of Jay's injuries, put our family in touch with JD, the Chester County Hero Fund, Kathy Lucas, and the entire TE Cares operation. As JD has already noted, not only have funds been raised to provide some degree of long-term financial security, but Dr. Preem, through his friendship with yet another Conestoga graduate, as JD mentioned, Jess Staley, has helped secure a home in the DC suburbs for Jay and Emily through the J.P. Morgan Chase organization. It's the subtle bursts of leadership that matter. I stand before you tonight to talk about Nancy McMullen, who, through her incredible service and leadership, worked with Jay in the Learning Support Program here at Conestoga. Mrs. McMullen enabled Jay to understand that he had choices in life. When Jay was hit, due to his intense training and understanding that he had choices, he actually barked medical procedures to his Marines and explained just what they had to do to make sure he didn't bleed to death in the Afghan desert. It's the subtle bursts of leadership that matter. I stand before you tonight to talk about the service and courage of your very own Laura Weiss. Laura was working on a story about Jay for the Spoke and contacted us to see if it would be possible to interview Jay at Walter Reed. It was a little early in the process to do so, so she asked if she could interview Jen and me. We said sure, but how brave a young woman to approach a very grieving couple with the sensitivity and clarity to properly get the story out to the students of Conestoga. It's the subtle bursts of leadership that matter. I stand before you tonight to talk about the leadership of Jay's older brother, Pete, a former Marine himself, who took a leave of absence on August 5th, 2010, to go to Bethesda Naval for 4 weeks and run interference with a usually well-meaning press, brass, and medical staff. Triple amputees in the early stages of hospitalization get covered up with all sorts of good intentions, some of which need to be managed. Quick story, a 4-star general came in and wanted to give Jay his Purple Heart, and Peter didn't think it was the day. It wasn't the appropriate day. And this is very early, it's just 2 weeks, 3 weeks after his arrival. And a young aide to the 4-star came up to Peter and said, I don't think you realize who this gentleman is. And Peter said, I realize full well who he is, and he's not seeing my brother today. It's the subtle bursts of leadership that matter. I stand before you tonight to talk about Jay's uncle, Skip Petrauskas, when he learned on August 6th that we were driving from San Diego to Devon with Jay's car and their puppy. Skip informed us that he would fly to Denver, pick up the car and the puppy, and drive the remaining 2,000 miles home. This will enable Jen and me to fly home the next day and be at Bethesda in time for Jay's arrival on Sunday the 8th. Yes, Skip does love dogs, and he loves road trips. But it's the subtle bursts of leadership that matter. I stand before you tonight to talk about Dr. Bob Preem and John DiBuonaventuro. Without the simplest reward, Dr. Preem and JD have stepped up and driven the support, both emotional and financial, that will serve Jay and Emily so well for the years to come. I think it's safe to say that ever since the two of them embarked on this journey with the Raffetto family at that simple dinner in August of 2010, they had absolutely no clue as to the incredibly hard work, tears, joy, service, and leadership that lay ahead. It's the subtle bursts of leadership that matter. Lastly, I want to say thanks to Jay and Emily. I'm not quite sure where this family would be without their unwavering leadership. Quoting Emily's dad when he toasted them at their vow renewal last summer. In August of 2010, when Jay nearly lost his life, our families were devastated beyond description. Struggling to console each other, each of us questioned how we could muster the courage to cope with Jay's losses. Little did we realize that it was Jay and Emily themselves who would lead us out of the darkness and into the light of hope. It's the subtle bursts of leadership that matter. In closing, we all know that you don't have to be a president, a general, or an admiral, a teacher, or a titan of industry to be a leader. What is so encouraging about you honorees tonight is your youth and that there are just so many of you. You are a generation that seems to really enjoy and thrive on service and leadership. While these honors probably help with college apps and certainly make your parents really proud, as I read through your accomplishments and why you were nominated, it's so clear that your actions were not motivated by outward recognition, but rather by just doing good things. It's the subtle bursts of leadership that matter. I've left out literally hundreds of people that have stepped up for this family over the past 18 months, not the least of whom are Conestoga students. You know you are leaders all. Congratulations to you, honorees, and thanks for the good work you do.
I don't think a simple thank you is appropriate, but thank you so much for those wonderful, memorable, lasting words of advice for all of us, not just our students.